Hi, everyone. This is Warstone again with another episode from Locked Up, the Wrongful Conviction Files, Episode 2, The Story That Didn't Add Up. How the prosecution's case relies on a witness whose story conflicts with facts, logic, and the street code. This is Locked Up, the Wrongful Conviction Files, a podcast where one man's fight for freedom begins with a single question: was justice served or just buried? I'm a former military police officer turned private investigator. I don't take sides, I follow the file. In episode 1, we look at the crime scene, the vehicle, the victims, and the arrest. We walked through the chaotic night on December 24, 2003, and saw how tragedy unfolded, leading to a man I'll call the client, being locked up for a crime he says he didn't commit. We saw the chaos, the victims trying to escape, and the police closing in. But that was just the beginning. Now, in episode 2, the story that didn't add up, I'm going to take you behind the police tape and into the interrogation room. I'll show you how the prosecution built this entire case on a single witness, a witness whose story contradicts the evidence, the timeline, and even the reality of North Philly's street life. This is Locked Up. Let's begin. Let's go back to the beginning of the investigation. After the shooting on December 24, 2003, the police started building their case. It was a chaotic scene, and they needed a break. That break came from a man called JW. Sometimes when you start reading the reports, start jumping from one side to another side. And when I realized what happened with JW, the first thing that I saw was a police report stating that JW claimed he was at 2059 North Franklin Street that night with several other males and that they were there to commit a robbery. Based on him, it was three males. It was him, the client, and somebody else. And according to JW, during the robbery, the client, the man now in prison, he shot three men, two inside the vehicle and one outside of the vehicle. Sounds like an open and shut case, right? A witness who was there giving up the shooter, but there was a massive red flag flapping in the wind right from the start. Now pay close attention. JW was already in custody on unrelated charges. He was sitting in jail when he decided to give a statement to the police about a triple shooting and the one that he was involved in. He came forward in March of 2004, 4 months after the shooting, and who knows if he was doing it to get a deal. It doesn't make sense for a man facing serious charges to possibly life in prison for his role in a robbery to suddenly come forward as a good citizen and volunteer information that implicates himself in North Philly. Doesn't happen. It's a risk you don't take unless you're getting something major in return: a deal, reduced charges, protection. That's not justice, that's a negotiation. A man facing a long sentence will do just about anything to get out from under that. Police even use a crime scene drawing to have JW mark where he placed himself on the opposite corner of where the Alero was located, far across the street. He's the only one who says the client was the shooter. And in the statement, he said that prior to going to the location, another friend, who I'll call F3, called him and declined to go to the same location where the murder happened because the young man there was a drug dealer and had a lot of money. But just think about it. He said that F3 called him and he planned it all out. Just doesn't make sense. Anyway, the plan, according to JW, was to rob them. And they headed there. And on May 1st, 2004, based on JW's statement and all the information he provided, they issued a warrant for the arrest of the client. But this isn't the only thing that doesn't add up. JW's statement, given from the confines of a jail cell, paints a picture that is too convenient. It gives the police everything they need: a motive, a plan, a shooter. It's a teeny little package that they can wrap up and present it to a jury. Not good. But a good investigator knows that the tedious packages are often the ones that have been tampered with. What was JW's original charge? What was he promised in exchange for the information? These are the questions that go unanswered in the police report. And these are questions that can unravel a case built in shaky foundation. I've seen it time and time again. A suspect facing a mountain of charges sees a way out. They'll throw anyone under the bus to save themselves. And the police, desperate to close a case, will take that deal. But not all the police do that. Some police, they actually need some more detective time in order to do that. But sometimes the detective has too many cases that they're working on that they actually need to close deals fast, not really giving the other guy a chance. They'll trade one man's freedom for another man's testimony, even if that testimony is full of holes. And that's exactly what feels like it happened here. And understand too, the detectives put it all together, and the prosecution, they're the ones that handle the cases, whether they can be taken to court or not. In this case, JW was the perfect witness because he was a captive audience. He wasn't free to walk away or change his mind. He was in a position of vulnerability, and the police exploited that vulnerability to get that story they needed. It's a classic case of convenience over truth. Now let's talk about that drawing, the one the police used with JW. I want you to please pay attention to this part because I'm doing right now is I'm telling you the story piece by piece, but I'm not going to tell you the end. Everything gets added on together later on. You'll be able to go back and read everything and see how I was able to put everything together. So this part is very important. The drawing shows the client standing at the passenger side window of the Alero, the side that was shattered, the window. Debris from the broken glass was later found at the corner of Franklin and Diamond. Behind the client in the drawing is F3. But here's the thing, this drawing does not show any of the victims, it doesn't show the shooting. It's just a reconstruction based on JW's word. It's like a movie script based on a single line of dialogue, and it leaves out all the crucial details. For instance, where was victim one, the young man who died at the moment? Was he in the car? Why was victim two, the man shot in the stomach, outside of the vehicle, not inside with the others, as JW's story would suggest? Later, we learned victim two was found at a nearby address. He was brought to the hospital. He said he was just coming from the Chinese store, China Garden, getting food. And victim three, the driver, said he was with victim one when they arrived at Temple Hospital. So we have a witness account that says everyone was in the car, and a witness account that says victim was outside of the car, and a drawing that shows a man being shot. It's a mess of conflicting details, and the foundation of the police's case is starting to look shaky. You can't just fill in the gaps with a drawing. The evidence has to speak for itself, and the evidence is screaming that something is wrong with this picture. This isn't a minor detail. This is a fundamental flaw in the prosecution's narrative. If victim two was simply walking back from a store, then the entire idea of a planned robbery targeting the car falls apart. It's an inconvenient truth that was either overlooked or deliberately ignored by the police and prosecutors. And that's what a good investigator is all about, or a good investigation is all about. Not just finding the information that fits your theory, but also finding the information that doesn't fit. And in this case, There's a lot of information that doesn't fit. The whole story is like a puzzle with missing pieces, and the pieces that are there just don't belong to the same puzzle. Yet the prosecution tried to force them together to a conviction. It's a dangerous game to play with a man's life. Then there's a civilian witness, and his story throws another wrench into the prosecution's case. He says he saw victim 2 talking to victim 1 and victim 3 near the Alero. They were planning to go to see a movie together. He left, came back, heard shots, and saw people scatter, but he didn't see who fired. This is a huge deal because if all 3 victims were friends on their way to a movie, then this wasn't a robbery target. It wasn't a planned hit. It was a random act or a misunderstanding or a setup. The prosecution says it was a planned robbery interrupted by gunfire. This civilian's witness account directly contradicts that. And this witness, he was walking with another person who said he didn't see anything. Both of them were friends with the victims, and both of them stayed quiet. And if you ask me why, it's because in North Philly there's a code, not a code of honor, a code of silence. People don't talk, not because they don't know, because they're afraid, afraid of retaliation, afraid of their families. Snitching isn't just frowned upon, it's dangerous. It can get you killed. So when someone does talk, you have to ask yourself basically, what do they get in return? Immunity? Reduced charges? Protection? That's not justice, that's a deal. And it makes me question the motives of every single person who came forward to talk to the police, especially if they were already in trouble. It's a transaction. And in a transaction like this, the truth is often the first thing to get traded away. That's what's so dangerous about building a case on a single witness who's also a defendant. It's not about finding the truth, it's about making a deal that gets the conviction. And that's exactly what the police did here. They found a man who was already locked up, gave him a way out, and used his story to put someone else behind bars. It's a shortcut to justice, and it's a dangerous one. It creates a domino effect of misinformation, where one lie begets another. And before you know it, you have an entire case built on a house of cards. The civilian witness who didn't see anything, the one who saw them planning a movie, the victim who said he was coming from a store, all of these inconsistencies add up to a big problem. A problem that the prosecution chose to ignore. They have a narrative and they stuck to it, no matter how many facts contradicted it. And in doing so, they may have buried the truth and locked up an innocent man. Now let's look at the car, the silver Oldsmobile Alero, the only vehicle at the scene. Police ran the plate, and here's what they found. It was a rental, and it wasn't rented by any of the people involved. Not the client, not victim one, two, or three, not F3, not JW. Someone else rented it. So why were these young men using a rental car? Who gave it to them? And it wasn't theirs. Why would the client risk his life robbing a car he didn't even know? According to JW, they were there to rob somebody, to rob those individuals, not to steal the car, but at this point, we don't know much more. The car being a rental adds another layer of mystery to this case. It's an inconsistency that the prosecution never fully addressed. They just pushed it aside to focus on the robbery narrative, which was built in on a shaky foundation, JW's testimony. You can't just ignore the facts that don't fit your story. In a wrongful conviction case, every detail, no matter how small, is a thread. And when you pull on these threads, the whole story can unravel. In this case, the rental car is a threat that leads to more questions, not answers. And it makes the client's alleged motive even more suspect. Why would he rob a car that he wouldn't even sell or use? It just doesn't make any sense. And yet, prosecution wants you to believe that. The client was involved in a planned robbery. But a planned robbery of what? A rental car that no one owned? Is logical or is it illogical? It's a narrative that only works if you ignore the most basic facts of this case. And that's what makes this so frustrating. The truth is right there in the file, but it was ignored in favor of a convenient lie. And that lie put a man in prison.